I don't know how to describe it other than like a demon type of sound.
But it's silhouetted, hulking, every bit of 5.5 feet wide, 13 to 14 foot tall, pitch black.
The one thing that ran through my mind when I had this encounter was I don't have a big enough gun.
Your host, two-time witness and field researcher for more than 40 years, William Jevning. Welcome to Creek Devil.
Hello everyone, welcome to Campfire Talk. This is where we sit around with our feet around the fire with our feet up, and we have a nice cold drink and let the conversation flow. Lisa's going to join us today. I wanted to start this chat off with talking about something that happened at Forest. But Tom, do you want to give an announcement before we get rolling?
I would love to. I want to thank everybody for tuning into our show. We're very grateful that you're interested in this topic and you listen to it on our channel. And if you like the show, we've said it 100 times, so let us know. Click the like and subscribe button, because that's a huge payout for us from YouTube and Google. And if you wanted to go the extra step, you can help us. It's tremendous. You can, if you're watching us on YouTube, just go to the description and there's a link to Patreon, or you can just go to patreon.com/CreekDevil. And for as little as $1 a month, you can become a contributing member. And that's much appreciated. One other thing I want to say real quick is, Fred, thank you so much. Fred in Okinawa. I know I said it once before. I'm going to say it again. Fred, thank you for sending the gift. I got one, and Will, you got one, and they're really nice. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we always appreciate Fred. The issue with the likes and stuff on YouTube really helps. It's what gets the shows out into other people's feeds. So, for something that's really simple to do, we'd really appreciate if people just hit that like button. So, I guess it's better to let you tell us, Forrest, what you found on your property. And I'll put the picture up on the Facebook channel, on the JRG Bigfoot research page. But I'm a little concerned about this. So first of all, tell everybody what you found.
You're a little concerned. I was concerned enough the sheriff was contacted. Well, it was kind of started out to be kind of a comedy of errors. I had kind of run short of dry cat food, and I'd been having some issues with my car, so I didn't drive, and Jessica said when she was leaving the store that night that she could just pick up a bag for me and that'd be okay. And I thought, well, obviously the cats weren't going to starve to death in 2 hours, so that'd be cool. So she was coming in the house, coming up the steps, and walked in the door and was bringing in this. She had this big bag of cat food thrown over her shoulder, and about that time, one of my cats that stays in the house all the time, and I don't know what prompted her to do this, but she darted out the door. And I'm standing there barefooted, and so Jessica immediately, she put the cat food bag down, and she immediately turned around to go after Elizabeth. So I yelled at Jessica. I said, give me a minute. I got to go back and I'll slip my flip-flops on, and I'll come out there and help you. So that's exactly what I did. And so in the meantime, Miss Elizabeth had your favorite cat, Chuck. You must have been talking to her or something, or she was headed to Oklahoma. I don't know. But anyway,
I'd take her.
I guess she thought, oh, I'm going to take a trip. Anyway, she'd already darted around the corner and had run through the gate and was headed up the driveway. And Jessica was in hot pursuit. And, of course, here I come. And she immediately, when the PEC had cut lanes through my front of my ranch out here, when they put up new poles, and they put a new light pole just I mean, it's not 2 feet outside of my yard fence. And, you know, I've got a 6-foot high fence around my yard now. And this pole light is just right there. But then there's a lane where they have cut through my property and then went over on the next door neighbor's property and cut another lane through to their pole, and it goes on down the road. So anyhow, I'm headed back there, and Jessica was looking around, and she was calling Elizabeth, and Elizabeth's not coming out. And I decided that, well, I'll just step in the cedars there. And I went through this opening. It was about 4 feet wide. There was nothing there. It was cleared out. And there was like a little cleared out area there, and maybe 10 feet circumference. And there was 2 paths, one going off to the southwest and another one going off to the southeast through the cedars. Now, I don't know who made it. It could have been deer, couldn't have been, well, my horses aren't up there in that area. So I don't know who did it. I'm assuming, I guess, deer. So anyhow, and it wasn't real high either. It was only like about 4 feet. And you could tell something had been traveling through. And that would probably be about right for the backside, you know, of a deer. So anyway, that's what I attributed it to anyway. And I was standing there looking around, and I'm yelling for Elizabeth. And here's the funny part about it. And it is a ha-ha moment. That I'm standing there calling Elizabeth. And Jessica has now walked down past me to the west on this lane, and she's calling Elizabeth. And who walks up behind us? Elizabeth. Like, y'all looking for me? Well, I just happened to look up. I mean, it was just totally, and I don't know how, it was easy to miss. Now, y'all see how well it blended in. And I won't repeat on air what I said, because it wasn't real nice. And Jessica walked over and said the exact same thing. What the blank is that doing there? And it was a game camera. And it wasn't my game camera. And it was pointed directly at my back door and my backyard. And so I didn't touch it. Neither did Jessica. And we called the sheriff's department. And, of course, we had to wait 15, 20 minutes. And because it was a non-emergency, even though I was steaming, as y'all know, because, Chuck, was I on the phone with you or did I call you? I don't remember.
You called me.
I called you. Okay. Because we'd been talking earlier, and I think I told you I had to go out and find your cat. Well, anyway, so I'm like, I called Chuck, and I said, you're not going to believe what we just found. And I said, you need to call Will right now.
Which
and
he did,
you know
yes.
why I had him call you Will, which he did. And then I proceeded to call Tom. And Tom knows why I called him, too. And so, anyway, we got, finally the sheriff shows up. He looks at it, and I'm thinking, okay, well, he's going to dust it for prints or something like that. Well, no, he just walked right up. This thing was tied, and this is the thing. It was tied with parachute cord to the tree. And you know what I'm talking about, the type of cord that they sell it's called parachute cord.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in you can buy it.
Paracord 550.
Huh?
It's paracord 550.
Yeah. And it's sold in any sporting goods department. So anyway, and it was green, forest green, and apropos. And he just reaches up there and cuts it down, pops the thing open. He said, well, yeah, it's going. And I'm like, didn't you want to dust it for prints? And he's like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, see where he's got a slightly waning interest. So he pops the SIM card out and then hands it to me and says, "Do you have a reader?" And I said, "Well, yes, I do, but I need to get," and in fact, just 2 days before, I had some SIM cards and I wanted to see which ones were empty and which ones needed to be cleaned out. And I was going to put some new ones out. And my reader was down, and I went to find some batteries, and I didn't have any batteries. I was out. And so y'all can fuss at me because I went to town the very next day. This all happened on Wednesday night. So Thursday I had a doctor's appointment. I went in there for the doctor's appointment and proceeded to drive straight past Walmart and completely forgot about the batteries until I got home. And I wasn't going to turn around and go back to Walmart, drive 15 miles for a set of batteries. And anyway, and then Friday, my car was in the shop all day long. So anyhow, I have not yet sat down and looked at it. And of course, the sheriff told me, he said, "Well, look at it, and if you see any faces on there that you don't recognize, bring the card in and we can print it out and see if we can't figure out who the heck it was."
Well, I'm hoping there's a face that needs a serious shave.
Well, I'm almost betting that there won't be anybody's face on it because they're sneaky enough to put it out there. They were going to be careful enough not to get a picture of themselves.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking, too. So that's why I was kind of hoping that he might dust it for prints. But, he seemed to be had kind of a cavalier, nonchalant attitude about the whole thing. So, two women freaking out over a game camera, yada, yada, yada,
Well,
so,
I know we've discussed some things, between us in text about, who it could have been and all that. And, it's interesting to me that it's somebody who apparently was aware of the activity on your property, but then how did they find out where you were? And then they snuck in there to do that. And obviously they have the means, to buy a camera like that, to sneak in there and put it up after they've located you and apparently knew where to put it on your property and to be able to have a computer to put the SIM card on to see what they get. And the question is why?
Well, I've never made any secret about where I'm located. And, I never had any fear or thought that somebody would ever do such as that until we had the situation with Carol arise. And
I was just going to bring that up.
Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about because that individual had made the comment, and I guess I'm just going to blurt it out there to everybody, that he had already been to my property and they had taken care of my problem, had eradicated my problem. Well, brother, you better get back out here because you didn't do a very good job. That's all I can say. So I didn't ask for anybody to come out here and eradicate my problem, and I have, as long as they don't, I'm not happy with some of the things that have happened recently with the cats, but, as long as they, I took care of that issue, so the cats are no longer in a position where they'll be, could possibly be hurt. So I've done my part. So I have no desire to just go out there and terminate them, so to speak. So, if I do, then you know what? Everybody's going to know about it. I'm going to announce it to the world. So, but I have never made any bones about where I live. And they could walk into my little town any point in time and ask for, Forrest. There's not too many women in this world with that name. And I can guarantee you, if many people that are related to me in this town, they would know exactly where to send them.
But here's the problem. Just like with Carol, now the individual in question, myself and Tom, independent of one another, told that individual not to go to Carol's because Carol didn't want anyone there. And, when you tell somebody what someone's preference is, you need to respect that. So if somebody wants to come to someone's property, they need to ask permission from the person themselves. And in Carol's case, that didn't happen. And in your case, that didn't happen. And I'm also wondering if they placed anything else on your property.
Well, this is actually, believe it or not, Jessica and I actually stood there here just after we had after the sheriff had left, and we came in the house, and we stood there looking at the game camera, and I said, I wonder how many more of these things are out there on the property.
You know,
and y'all can see it. I mean, it's not easily seen up against those cedar trees. It blends in really well.
It kind of sets up a disturbing precedent also. I mean, when people think that it's okay for them to go out on someone's private property and do whatever they want to do, that's kind of creepy. Not to mention, you know, if they did get information, like in the case of Carol's, this guy went on Reddit and put a bunch of personal information about her and the neighbor up there that they had no right to do, and was trying to discredit what had happened on her property. So it's kind of the next step in muddying the waters in this topic. We get really good witnesses, credible ones, like in Carol's case and yours, because you're an anthropologist. If somebody went out and tried to start muddying the waters, then pretty soon, it calls into question all of the sightings that are reported by people. You know what I mean?
Well, and on top of that, and I think all of y'all will concede this fact, is that if it's going to happen to me, if it's going to happen to Carol, I mean, it just could easily happen to Lisa. It could happen to anybody that comes on the show and makes a report. And why? My big question is why? Why would you want to do something like that? We want to, unless they are actually working with an organization that wants to discredit
to purposely do this. Yeah, is this?
That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, is this a form of misinformation? We have to ask that. I mean, you can't say, well, it's a conspiracy. No, it's a legitimate question. What's the purpose? They'd say, oh, well, we're just trying to clarify what's happening there. Well, no, you're not. I'm sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
And, well, I was just going to say, and I'm just going to go in. I don't want to say I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm going to look at it from the standpoint that if it's not this person, and if it's not what we think it is, who is it and why? What are some of the other options that are out here?
Oh, yeah.
And why?
No, I'm with you. It may not.
Is there another organization?
Yeah, it may not be the person that was at Carol's. It may be somebody entirely different. We don't know. Not yet, anyway.
Well,
right.
Let's not forget the helicopter guys.
That's true.
Right. Oh, yeah. No. So there's a lot of mystery and a lot of unanswered questions.
For me,
what's that, Lisa?
What comes to mind for me is because down in the Catskills, I kind of had a little issue with someone trying to pump me for information because they wanted to be able to think they could see a Bigfoot or know where Bigfoot activity is and want to exploit that, because they want to get their own, kicks off. They want to find Bigfoot and they're not able to, so they hear of an area that's very active and they go about just taking it upon themselves to find that location and do whatever it takes to get that, even if it's on the sly, without asking permission or.
Did you get that person's name by chance?
Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, you could share that with us privately if you would. And we'll tell you who the other person is.
Yeah, I think I might have mentioned it. I think I may have mentioned the person to you, but it was a person from up here, a person that had nothing to do with Texas or anywhere else. It was a local person. And I think I kind of warned you about that person.
And it's bad for these people.
Well, I think what we sometimes...
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Forrest.
Pardon me?
Go ahead.
Well, I think sometimes what we're dealing with, too, is that we have these moronic people out there that have this notion in their head that, if I find and I discover Bigfoot, then I'm going to become rich and famous.
Right.
Well, you know what? Let's face it. There isn't a person that's sitting here in this campfire talk that hasn't already discovered Bigfoot. And I don't know of any of us that have made any money off of it. In fact, it's done nothing but cost us money. So I don't. Let me assure you, folks, I don't know how you're going to become rich and famous through Bigfoot. So, but more power to you. So.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Come on, Miss Forrest. We all want to hit Will up for a couple of meals.
I'd like to hit Will up for that too.
Public author. He's got the dough. We
can hit him up for it, but we'll never get
it around a little bit.
I'd like.
Will, can we upgrade the beer here, please? We're not. You're not buying us the expensive beer now.
I'd like to know where those accounts are myself.
I'll keep drunk too, Will. Come on, man.
On a serious note, though,
Will, I'm just joking because you and me had this conversation about a month or two ago. You're not going to get rich, doing what you do,
No.
And so, I was just making a joke about that. But I'd like to bum about $1 million, $500,000 if you can.
Yeah, me too. On a serious side, though, guys,
I'm sure it's got enough to spread around.
Here's a serious part of this problem, though. If people get it in their heads that it's okay to go sneaking in on some witness's property, without their permission or knowledge, and I can tell you, I know from what Carol told me, her brother, point blank, said, because he got the 5 acres that she had lived on, where this activity was going on, and he said he would shoot somebody trespassing on the property. So if you think you want to take that chance, that's the kind of thing you got to look forward to. And there are people out there who certainly will shoot you. So if you want to roll that dice.
Well,
some of these.
Well, this is Texas, and there's.
I know where you're going.
And Alabama, we can do that.
This is Texas, and I'm just going to tell you something. There's open carry here. I can walk in the grocery store packing my 357 any day of the week, and there isn't a soul in there that's going to say a thing. They just smile. And, because they know if there's a problem, hey, we're just going to call her, This is Texas.
We have the same laws here in Alabama.
Yeah, we love our
laws.
guns. And you know what? You come sneaking around on somebody's property, you're just asking for trouble. So, and the sheriff's department around here, we usually say, just make sure they're dead. It makes you less having to fill out reports. So, I think that sounds like a pretty good warning right there.
Oh, yeah. Hey, what were you going to say, Chuck?
Also, a word to the wise.
Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, I was going to say that, some of these people I think are just looking for a big can of whoop, you know what.
I don't know what they think they're doing, to be honest. Go ahead, Lisa. What were you going to say?
I think all the Northerners up here better be forewarned, because it's not common knowledge up here that down in Texas, people who paint their fences or their anything bordering their property purple is just as good as a posted sign.
Yep.
And that's not a known fact up here. So they better be careful.
No, I think
they
that's
start
the
seeing
case.
fence posts painted purple.
Yep, you don't
Painted
have
purple?
to put no posted sign out on your property. If your gate or your posts are painted purple, you better not be trespassing. That's all I can tell you.
So just a heads up for anybody who might have it in his head, come poking around. Down in Texas,
it's just the whole idea of it really bugs me.
Somebody put it there.
Yeah, you hear something like on our show.
Somebody had the audacity.
something like we talk about on our show, we get good witnesses, and then somebody thinks, oh, to heck with them, I'm going to go look for myself. What gives you the right, or what gives you, what makes you think that you have the right to do that is my question.
I'm curious about that too. That happens down here a lot.
Look at society now. I mean,
I know.
Without getting into politics, and of course, that's another thing to be said. I mean, and let's face it, Texas is very conservative, folks. So you probably know how my politics lean. And I mean, society has just gone ever loving crazy. I mean, did you think that you can walk into a store and load up and steal stuff from people? And, that's not going to happen down here. I mean, you're that little song, not in my small town. Well, it ain't going to happen in our small town either.
Well, and this isn't the first time.
I'll tell you what's going to happen.
It's not the first time I've had this, knowledge of this or actually experienced it. I've talked about this numerous times, back when we were doing the occult thing. That was 89, 90. And it was a PhD who was in a relatively responsible position heading the Oregon Regional Primate Research Center. Henner Fahrenbach was the guy. And he did this exact thing. When he and I made the agreement, the family told him he had to go through me to arrange coming onto their property, their private property. And I arranged with him a date and a time to meet there. And he decided he was going to go when he wanted to go and do what he wanted to do. And aside from really upsetting the family, extremely upsetting them, he destroyed the behavioral situation we had going on there. So that's another aspect of this, people going in and thinking they can do what they want to do on somebody's private property without the owner's permission or knowledge. You think you're going to get something and you might totally wreck it.
Well, and how do I know that somebody's not out here, trying to feed them and this, that, and the other?
Yeah.
If there's
right,
and that's the last thing I need.
Unintended consequences.
Exactly, and you start modifying the behavior, and you know what? And then we're left to deal with the situation after it's all over and done with.
And potentially, folks, you got to think that could result in somebody's death doing things that you don't know. You don't know what you're doing, so you could cause those kinds of very serious unintended consequences.
Exactly.
Yep.
And Tracy, I know you're familiar with those from the work you did, having been involved with all that stuff.
Yeah, the property, crossing property lines and doing things on property lines is taken very seriously down here now. 20, 30 years ago, I hunted a lot when I was young on my grandfather's property. The property lines weren't very clearly marked. So if I ended up on the neighbor's property and they caught me and I told them who I was and everything, property line is right up there. I said, well, I didn't know. I'm sorry about it. And that was all that was ever said about it, But now with people cooking meth and doing all kind of things like that in the woods, people are real funny about finding people on their property.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a joke anymore. It's not a, hey, okay, I know who you are. It's, wait a minute, what in the hell are you doing down here? And because on our hunting club property, we found we had a problem with that. We had people coming out there because it was kind of a deserted area, nobody lived around there. And they would cut the gates and go down our trails and find a place by a creek, and they would cook meth. And we would find these places after they'd done it and report it to the police. And you would not believe how they come out there. They come out there in Tyvek suits with hoods and stuff. They would dig up all the dirt, put it in barrels and carry it off. This is toxic waste.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it was very, very expensive every time they done that. In fact, I remember the sheriff coming out one of the last times we did that. It's this, what, the fifth or sixth one y'all found down here? And one of the guys said, no, sir, this is the seventh one we reported. And he said, do you know that every time we do this, it costs us about $150,000? No, sir.
And,
what do you want us to do, not report it? You know?
And you know, it's not just private
said,
property.
No.
When I worked for a company in 2000 that was in the town of Roy near Fort Lewis. And we used to get safety briefings all the time. You know, they said, you know, because you could go into that side of Fort Lewis at that time. There just wasn't many restrictions. But people had meth labs out there, and they would warn us about meth labs on Fort Lewis property. So if they're willing to do it on a military base, then, you know, there's people willing to do stuff just about anywhere.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, it's amazing. People have the guts to do that. Just go on somebody's property and do something. So I'm not surprised by Forrest finding that camera on her property. You know, I really wasn't shocked by it. I was shocked by why they would put a camera pointed at her back door, though.
Well, now, Forrest, that's where a lot of the Bigfoot activities happen, right? In your backyard there?
Yeah, in my backyard and my front yard. And if they would have thought that maybe that it was coming around the back, it's actually the where I've actually had them come up to the window was in the front here. But you know, if where they had it, they could pretty much view the entire backyard.
Right.
Or most of it.
And we've talked about a lot of those things, you know, with the cats and everything, you know, going on back there. So, you know, if you were going to place a camera to observe someone's activity, that would be a good place to do it, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm really curious about what's on that card in that camera. I'm really curious about that.
I am too.
Well, I am too, and I am going to get off my duff. In fact, I was thinking about doing it tonight and going and getting some batteries. And everybody's probably out there going, "Oh my God, I would have just rushed right over to the store." Well, part of the problem is that my AC is not working in my car, which is one of the major reasons it's got to go back in the shop again. And you know what? We've been having 105, 110 weather. And you know what? It's not real pleasant to even drive 15 miles to go get batteries. Yeah.
You know, I'll bet you.
That's my reason for being lazy, if you want to call it that.
I'll bet you.
No, that's not lazy.
But I went to the doctor's office Wednesday, the very next day, and I just Thursday, and because this all happened Wednesday night, I just completely forgot about it. I just was like on a mission. I'm going home. And so I forgot about it. And then as soon as I pulled in my driveway, I was like, it was one of those oh poop moments where I went, I forgot to get those batteries. And then the very next day I had to go at 8 o'clock and drop my car off. And we literally, and Chuck can attest to this, I literally picked it up at midnight last night because I paid for it over the phone. And then Jessica came in and she didn't get home till late because all the meat bunkers had gone down at Walmart, and they were pulling meat, dairy, everything over there and discarding it because they lost everything over there. So that she was just tied up with that, and so it was nearly midnight, I guess it was, Chuck, before I got my car. And she dropped me, and then I drove it back over here. Well, there wasn't anything open in this little town at midnight for me to pick up batteries. So
you know, I'll bet you whoever put that camera there is very curious about what's on it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and why it's not there any longer.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I've come across one even up here.
If you're listening, I'll let them know.
Yeah, we'll put it on the show here.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how long has that camera been up there?
Good
Was
question.
it put up a week ago, a month ago? You know, how long? That'd be interesting.
Well, guys, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, it could have been up there 6 months, and I mean, honest to God, it's not. I wouldn't have known. And
hey, Forrest, I just thought of something.
What's that?
What kind of batteries does your card reader take? Because if it's the same kind of batteries that are inside that camera, you just take them out of the camera and put them in the card reader as a temporary thing to see what's on it.
Well, actually, mine takes the small. Mine, they're AA that are in that the game camera, and mine takes the smaller
AAA.
It's a AAA. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because we
figures.
actually thought about that.
Well, now I got a question too for listeners. Has anyone out there who's had the creatures on their property, have you seen anything like this on your land? Any cameras posted without your knowledge or permission?
That's a good question.
They need to call us or text us.
On a positive note, she may have got some pictures on there that show a bunch of stuff as far as Bigfoot related stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And I want to say, if there are people that have had this situation and you want to contact us and you want to know how to contact us, it's real simple. It's the same email we use for just about everything. It's questions. So it's questions, plural, at creekdevil.com. And that also goes for encounters. And I've got a few people on there that I need to get back to that you guys have contacted us, that you've had a sighting and an encounter. So we're not ignoring you. We're just going through this stuff as quick as we can. And I want to thank those people for reaching out to us. You'll hear from us.
Well, I had a funny thought, and actually Jessica was the one that posed this to me. You know, maybe we should go back out there and put that game camera back up, put a new SIM card in it, and then us put one of our game cameras in the yard facing that.
Right, I like that idea.
There you go.
And see what happens.
Now you spilled the beans, though.
Yeah.
Of course, it all depends who put the card there, whether they listen to the show or not. So who knows?
Well,
yeah.
This is true.
Or get a fake one, or if you can gut this thing without damaging it, just put the chassis up there and then put the other one, the real camera, pointing towards this one. That way you still got a nice game camera to keep.
Yeah. Well, that was the comment that the sheriff said, well, I guess you got another game camera now. I was like,
I heard him say that. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you were on the phone when I was talking to him.
He was a nice guy. He really was.
He was. Yeah, because when I told him, because I asked Tom, and Tom was listening, and I said, Tom, should we tell him what the issue is around here? And he said, oh, yeah, go ahead. And so I did. And the guy was not, he didn't act too surprised, did he, Tom?
No, I was thinking, if you're in for a dime, you're in for a dollar. You might as well go for it.
Yeah. So he didn't act real surprised. And I thought, well, is that because maybe somebody else has complained about similar situations, and they're not going to let on or tell me anything?
No, they're not going to. No.
So although he did talk about the ball python, and Jessica and I were both like, "You killed it, right?" And he's like, "Well, no, I was thinking that those were protected species." And my wife told me when I got home with the picture, she liked to come unglued and said, "Why didn't you kill it?" Yeah, he had a python that was stretched completely across one lane of the highway over on a county road here.
You know what a ball python is in the United States?
Mm-hmm.
It's one too many.
Invasive species. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and here's the other thing for us. I think statistically it's impossible that you've had the encounters on your property and you're the only one. I just don't think that's possible.
No, I don't think so either, Tom. You and I both have discussed this, and I think that a lot of people are maybe afraid to talk about it for fear of,
Sure. Well, and think about the visitor you had not that long. I don't know how long ago it was, but I don't think it was that long ago. In a dark blue SUV.
I was thinking that
right
too.
outside your property. Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking there's probably more activity than you know about, and people are making a fuss than more than we may realize.
Well, and that could very well be true. It's not like I go out there and roam the woods at night. So, I just, it's weird and it's strange that people would act that way. But then, I mean, like I said before, the way society is now, nothing surprises me anymore. It really doesn't. Although I was pretty mad when I saw that. I was so mad I was shaking.
I bet.
I think
I've come across something a little different.
New four-letter words.
What'd you find, Lisa?
I said I've come across something a little different. 2 occasions. Once I was on a landowner's property with permission that bordered state land, and it was quite expansive. And I had asked if I could, do what I was doing, and came across both on his property, unbeknownst to him, and one time on state land, because when I bushwhack, I mean, I'm way off the trail where people just don't go. And I've found encampments, like permanent encampments, that showed signs of, current activity, people living in the middle of the woods.
Homeless people?
And this gentleman didn't have a clue.
Homeless people?
The gentleman who's, I have no idea, because as soon as one had smoke coming out, I mean, it was a makeshift tarp kind of a building, like more than a tent, less than a cabin, had wood cut, and I just didn't hang around. I just didn't want to be seen by them, so I kind of went on stealth mode and just got myself out of there on both occasions. I didn't want to run into whoever was living out there.
Well,
both were active.
Lisa, I actually found, this has been a year and a half ago now, but we found a tent on the back part of my property, and I've since I've just closed that gate off back there. And it's funny because Jessica and I were talking about that after all this happened. I said, there could be a dozen people back there now, and we wouldn't know it, but we found a tent back there, and somebody, I mean, it was evident that somebody had been staying back there. And we're staying back there. Well, we took everything down and piled it in a pile and burned everything. So there was nothing for them to come back to. So they, they left. But what? That's not. The horses don't even go back there on that part of the property. So I could have 100 people back there and probably wouldn't know it.
Well, I let this gentleman know. And it was quite the surprise to him. And the other one where it was on state land, and definitely in a spot where somebody did not want to be found. And I called the ranger. And at any trailhead, I always put the ranger's number in, because I'm always out there alone. There's a bunch of different things I do to keep myself safe should, I break a leg or something, something happen. But...
you never know what you're going to run into.
No.
Even in campgrounds.
And to be honest with you, pardon me?
Even in campgrounds, I can tell you a story. It's kind of funny. My brother-in-law and I used to we'd go up ahead of the other guys camping. We planned, a weekend camp out up by Mount Rainier in one of the established campgrounds where they actually had a camp host and everything, right? So you think you could say, you pick your spot, they're numbered, and not even that far apart from one another. And you think your stuff is fairly safe, to go into town and grab a few things and come back in. The town was Ashford. It was only, a few miles away. So we come back in, and apparently during the winter there were some windfall trees, and there was one that was down, and the camp host had cut it up into rounds, and it was probably, a couple, 2.5 feet thick. And we see this man and woman, kind of scraggly looking pair, in our camp. and they had odd names too. It was and this cracks us both up to this day. They introduced themselves as Mitt and Anal. It was Tim and Lana. It was Tim and Lana backwards. So they were fairly heavy drinkers, these two. And supposedly they were in our camp just rolling some of these logs, to where their camp was. They were living in the campground. And it's just kind of like, oh, you guys we're going to come over and have some beer? And we kind of look at each other like, no, we've got our own, thanks, But,
yeah, right.
Good old Mitt and Anal.
And they just happen to be carrying a 6-pack of your brand out of your campsite, right?
No, that's what we were on a beer run, so we were bringing ours back.
Oh, okay.
but you never know what you're going to run up against.
Oh yeah, I used to camp a lot in campgrounds, and boy, there's some. Yeah, you run into some interesting folks sometimes.
There's some characters, that's for sure. I mean, these two were pretty harmless, it seemed like, but you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know, they could have stole us blind.
You don't know. Somebody's on the run. Somebody's trying to not be found. It happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It does happen. Yeah. So, being I'm usually out alone, I take extra precautions.
That was my story for the day. I have lots of stories, but
let's just say I got my concealed carry. So
I have lots of stories, but they're not all radio appropriate. So those are for when we're sitting around a real campfire sometime.
Right?
Yeah.
Hey, Lisa, do you have any of those satellite communicators?
I have to tell you about the naked guy I came across.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey,
that was
Will,
interesting.
the job I had before the one I got now when I worked for the government?
Yeah.
I had an experience one day. There were people who had been reporting to the park rangers that they were having food and drinks and things like that stolen, from their campsites, and not even just campsites, from sites where they were just enjoying a day with a picnic basket. They would go back and things would be stolen, food, drinks, Cokes, beer, things like that. And they had told us all about this. And one morning, I'm pulling into one of the parks where we were working on something, and I saw this guy. There was a nature trail that connected about 8 or 10 of those parks. I never walked the whole nature trail. I never had a chance to, but it connected the parks, and the trail went up through the woods. Well, I saw this guy hustling up through the woods, trying to get to the trail, and he had a bunch of food under his arm. He was leaving a campsite, and the markings on our trucks didn't specify what we were. But I pulled up my guy on and said, "Hey, brother, what you doing?" And I guess he assumed I was a park ranger because he immediately dropped all this stuff, and he's, he's talking crazy, saying all kind of weird things, And I'd kind of got on my radio, and I got a little park ranger up there. I said, "Hey, I got a problem up here, And it turned out it was this guy. He was running from the law, and he'd been hiding up there and stealing food and things like that from people's picnic baskets and campsites and anything he could, And about 2 or 3 weeks later, they had one of our crews clearing out the hiking trail, trimming limbs and, just making a good hiking trail. and they found where he'd been camping. He had a couple of tarps set up and things like that. So you never know what people are doing. And I had seen this guy on 4 occasions just walking through the park. I just assumed he was a park visitor, you know. I didn't mess with him because, I mean, it really wasn't my responsibility to do anyways, you know. But, yeah, things like that happen, and nobody thinks about it.
Mm-hmm. You think everybody else is out there just to have a good time and camp and enjoy and, you know.
Exactly. My job was to take care of the construction and the things like that are going on in the park. I wasn't, but the vehicles we drove are very similar to the park ranger vehicles, except with the markings on the side. You know.
Yes.
Guys, Tom, are you still out there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Cool beans.
Yeah. Okay.
No, at one point I was going to ask Lisa, when you're talking about your safety items, besides the sidearm, I was just wondering if you carry like a satellite communicator, like an InReach or Spot or something like that, because those could be real handy.
That's next on my list. Yeah.
All right. They're spendy, but it's like insurance. Exactly. You don't need it till you need it.
Well, that's something a lot of people don't realize too. They think, I've got my cell phone, but you get out there, and in a lot of places, you don't get cell reception.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, Tom, you know that when we were up in the forest up there in July, it didn't take long before we got away from the main highway, and there was no cell phone service.
Well, there's that one location where Adam's son suddenly got cell reception. It must have just been a little sliver of it. Yeah.
Yeah, Adam's son, he had the Mickey Mouse voice would come across his phone, and we were still standing around there getting ready to walk down into that cut, where you found the juvenile tracks. And the Mickey Mouse voice comes on, and what it say? It's, well, hello, campers, or something like that.
Yeah.
We're all looking at each other like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Well, hello, campers.
And he was surprised. I mean, we were in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
And we had, we're in we had a lot of ravines and ridge lines around us. And it's like, how did that signal make it through there? But it did.
I heard Adam go, I think you better turn that off.
Well, there's Tom, a couple of you're talking about that sat phone. What always comes to mind for me, and I don't remember what Jurassic Park show it was.
Yes, exactly.
Was that the second movie, I think?
One guy had the sat phone, and I guess he got eaten by one of those monsters.
The Spinosaurus,
out there. Yeah, the Spinosaurus. Yeah. Thank you for remembering that, because I couldn't.
It was on TV yesterday.
By that. And it was in the large pile of steaming hot poop, and they had to dig for it.
Oh, yeah, right.
And I thought, that always comes to mind. I was like, oh my, we don't want to. That's not the way we want to find you with the sat phone.
That's right.
When I first met with Will, and was on the podcast and was talking to him and sending him my evidence, even before I went on air, you had given me some suggestions on what to do. And to this day, in the bottom of my big backpack, I have an air horn, and I have a big can of bear spray put on my belt.
Yeah, there's some
but
things you can do.
The air horn is something that that's just a couple of them, but I took them to heart, and
I carry both
got
of
that
those.
air horn.
Yeah, the air horn is good, especially for, I don't know if you guys have mountain lions out there, but they're good for that.
They say we don't, but I have a picture of one down in the Catskills walking across a field along a very well-used road to get to Wyndham ski area.
Of course.
And it's just walking in broad daylight, walking through the field. And where I was in the Catskills was the northernmost. You went any further, there were no more mountains. It was very steep, a lot of cliffs, very rocky, and there were some areas that even before I got into this subject that I would hike, and I would say, that's a perfect spot to be ambushed. And one winter hiking up there, snowshoeing, I found a deer carcass at the bottom of that cliff area. And it got me thinking. It wasn't a roadkill. It was too far from the road, and just the injuries on it and such, and what was left of it, and how it was left, led me to believe that this wasn't roadkill. I don't know what killed it, but
that's unnerving, isn't it? Because there's an area that I like to hike frequently in my area, and I didn't see the carcass, but there was fur, white
everywhere. Yep,
fluffy fur all over the place.
Too.
Something was was running for its life, and it must have made it, but the area is just covered with coyote scat. So but there's houses around. You just can't use. You couldn't even use an air gun or pellet gun, but you can use bear spray and an air horn.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something else too. I've often carried. And that's road flares. And the reason being is there's nothing alive that isn't afraid of fire. Now, of course, you have to be very careful where you're using something like that. But, it's a course of last resort. If you got these things coming in on you and you're afraid for your life, which is something you should have in mind, I think that's a great method to use.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't take much to have an encounter with one of these things to be afraid for your life, right?
That's right. A friend of mine.
You go to that very quickly.
A friend of mine, I've
and
mentioned.
Another thing I carry on me.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Especially if you pee on one. They don't like that.
I'm going to give that a try. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to run up.
Tracy peed on one.
I carry a large, something like the size of a pill container, a large one, with cotton balls just gobbed with Vaseline.
Okay,
because
good
you
fire
can start a fire.
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, good fire
pouring rain. Yes. And they will burn. Just in case if I got, broken ankle, got some, stuck out there.
Tracy had some great advice there.
Have a lighter and
He said he recommends not.
All you need is an empty pill container.
Don't pee on a Bigfoot. That's what Tracy says. He did that,
yeah.
And it wasn't very good.
Oh.
Don't pee near a Bigfoot. Don't pee on anything they pee on. I'm the resident pee expert. Do not pee on one of those things. Do not even let them smell your pee.
Go ahead, Forrest. I'm waiting.
I have heard a story about 3 guys going out and where there was a really nasty group, and they all urinated on this big tree stump, and they came back the next day and it was shredded. A 4-foot round tree stump, and it was shredded to bits.
Well, ask Chuck about that.
That's kind of almost what happened to me.
Really?
Hey, Chuck.
Yeah.
Chuck?
Yeah.
Tell them your story about the tree.
No, well, me.
So you didn't pee on a tree, did you, buddy? Come on, man.
Well, me and a buddy of mine went to an area that's pretty active, and we camped out there. And this place, we went pretty far back in the woods, and you couldn't even find a piece of trash out there, and which is kind of odd. Anyway, that night we'd set up our tents, and that night during the night I'd get up in the middle of the night, and there was a tree right next to my tent, and tree was about probably 4 to 5 inches in diameter, and I did that several times that night. And next morning we got up, and my buddy that was with me had a migraine headache, so we went into town to get some ibuprofen for him. And on the way back, we decided to stop and eat breakfast at a little restaurant. We ate breakfast and we went back to the campsite. And when we got back to the campsite, this tree that I had doctored, I guess you might say, had been broken. Had been broken at the bottom part of the tree and was pushed over toward my tent, and it probably missed my tent by about 5 or 6 inches. And if it would have hit my tent, it would have collapsed my tent and torn up my tent. So I learned pretty quick that, they don't like you messing with trees.
Marking their territory.
Right.
Or their feet.
That would be unnerving.
It was
very unnerving.
But stupid me, we went to another location in the same area sometime later, and I picked out a tree that was a little bit further away from where our tents were. And the next morning we got up. I was checking my theory to see if I was correct. Well, we got up the next morning on that one, and there was a half decomposed deer leg laying in one of the tree branches there, and
wow.
it wasn't there the day before, so
wow.
They don't like that.
No, they don't. It seems they don't mind females, but they do mind males.
So you think it's the testosterone in our urine that winds them up?
Absolutely. I do.
Guys,
I've camped out solo enough in the areas where there's been no repercussions to me doing the same. So it wasn't on a tree, mind you, but.
I hate to say it, guys, but it's time to wrap.
On that note.
On that note, talking about peeing on things, it's time to wrap up, folks.
That reminds me. Did anyone catch the urinating in the audio I sent?
That was very clear.
After
yes.
he's whacking the ground. Yeah. So the consensus of the people who've heard it, they say that. They're pretty sure it's a he, the juvenile.
Well, I would say that, yeah, just by the sound.
Yeah.
And I don't recommend responding either. Let him feel what he wants to.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for sitting around the fire with us. We'll be back next week.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creek Devil. If you or anyone you know has had an encounter with these creatures, please contact us at williamjevning@yahoo.com. That's William, Jevning, @yahoo.com. All communication is confidential. Join us for another program next week. And until then, keep your eyes open out there.